Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's #1 industrial automation product and technology show. Thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Thank you for being a member of our audience, and thank you for tuning back in this week. Now, for those new to the show, my name is Shawn of Insights in Automation, and each week I invite a new vendor on the show to tell us about their products and technologies. And during their presentation, I play the role of the audience and ask questions I think you have, and some questions I have as well. And given that over a quarter of our audience listens to the show, not watch it, but listens to it, I also try to call attention to any details I think that you, the listening audience, will like to know about. So with that said, this week, I want to welcome back to the show, Jay and Tom. Guys, really appreciate you coming back on to talk about ProFace. But before we jump into that, would you guys mind reintroducing yourself in case this is the first episode one of our audience is watching? And we'll start with you, Jay.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks, Shawn. Yes, my name is Jay Cortel. I am an applications engineering manager at Schneider Electric with over 25 years of automation experience. I'm here representing our OEM IA organization by bringing in our top engineers to discuss a few offerings for our machine solutions lineup. Super excited to be here, Shawn, for our 4th podcast with even more Schneider Electric, aka Modicon content to all of our listeners. Again, this is our 4th podcast, and if you didn't catch the first 3, number 1 was on Modicon PLCs, 2 was on Harmony HMIs, 3 was on our machine Altivar drives. So feel free to catch up and listen to any of those very informative ones as well. So today, I have a returning presenter with me today, not only because I respect his knowledge and his technical capabilities for all of our HMI products, I also couldn't get anyone else with our short notice. Joking. I'd like to introduce Tom Reiter.
Hi, thanks, Jay. Yeah, and thanks, Shawn, for having me on again. So like Jay said, my name's Tom Reiter. I used to work for Jay in his SAE team, application engineering team here in the U.S. And about 2 years ago, I took on a new role as a global application engineer working for the HMI line of business. And I've been doing that since I've been with Schneider since 2012, and I've been doing industrial automation like Jay for many years, over 25 years. Okay. So today, what we're going to actually talk about is, previously in the previous podcast, we talk about the Harmony HMI line, and today we're going to talk about we're not talking about just an HMI line. Today, we're kind of talking about a different brand within the Schneider portfolio, and that's ProFace. And it's handled. ProFace is a large brand in Asia, and then ProFace is actually operating a separate sales force in United States selling ProFace products. So let's talk about that. So in the first podcast that we did, we talked about the Harmony HMI line, and now we're talking about the ProFace, basically the HMI line. And there's a lot of crossover as far as the products are similar, etc. But the differentiation is between the brands. And when we talked about Schneider, we look at the HMI package as being part of an overall automation solution, where the HMI is a piece to it. It integrates into the whole piece with all the other pieces. When we talk about ProFace brand, even though we're kind of talking about similar hardware and similar software, with ProFace brand, we focus on being where we're on a concept where we're putting kind of the HMI in the middle of the system. So we're using the HMI as the manager of the system, perhaps what you would do with a PLC in a Schneider solution. Okay. And you could see, if you look through this chart here, you could see the offers are, less on the ProFace side. We're only really selling HMIs and IPCs and software. We're going to market in a little bit of a different way. We have different strengths, and then we could have different types of segments. Okay. So the PowerPoint that I'm going to show today, it's quite long and quite involved. I'm not going to get into all the details. We can, this is a PowerPoint that's available publicly, so you can, if you wanted to see any more of these details, you could dig into it. And basically what we're talking about when we're speaking to this HMI-centric concept is, like I said, we're putting the HMI and its functionalities basically at the center of the architecture, right? So we're putting, in another system, you might see the HMI here with the PLC in the middle. In a ProFace system, we're trying to position the HMI in the center. Okay, and then there's some links here where you can go to and see some of these architectures that we have put together. Okay. Again, so we're talking about this is some of the main messages: high flexibility, meaning we've got a lot of connectivity for different things, simple visibility, and strong reliability. Okay. Like I said, so the flexibility piece is the ability to have, on the ProFace side, again, even though the software in many cases is very similar, what you'll see on the ProFace side, for example, is they may have more drivers for more types of PLCs. For example, so the Schneider software may have drivers for the major PLCs, where on the ProFace side, you're going to see some more obscure agent style PLCs or some, lower level types of devices that ProFace can justify, doing the work and doing the connectivity to. Okay. Again, just like the Schneider lines, the offer is scalable and customizable. And then we're ready to collaborate through services to do different things with HMIs. Okay. On the visibility side, then this is, again, these are just kind of the, the marketing overall main messages. I think what a lot of people listening here are really going to be more interested into the product. But these are the messages that ProFace is putting out there as a brand. Okay. So here you can see some examples of some of the HMI-centric architectures that we've actually put together. So for example, you have a router where you can scan a QR code with a smartphone, and then it makes a Wi-Fi connection, and you can access your HMI, for example. You've got an HMI with a network camera where it actually the system could be programmed to record a video of something happening, say 10 seconds before an alarm and 10 seconds after alarm, and that could be captured and saved into a file. Okay. Again, box HMI with QR codes to scan in for, different PDFs or whatever it might be. And then again, instead of logging in with a password, we can log in with an NFC reader, for example. And then we've got a lot of sample applications where we're essentially duplicating the functionality of a teach pendant for a specific robot like Yaskawa or Fanuc. All right, and then I'm going to go past some of this stuff. Again, people can look at this if they'd like to. So when we talk about this, is kind of an overall product picture. Right. So when you're looking in here, when you look at things like this, when you see Blue in GP Pro and Blue Open Studio, what those are referring to, those are the different software packages that exist within the ProFace brand. And then in these boxes, you can kind of see these are the hardware platforms, and we've organized this from simple to basically more complex, and then even has an outdoor unit. Right. So you can kind of see ST6000, GP4000, SP5000, we're moving up into different levels of hardware, different screen sizes, functionalities, etc. So now this is just a little bit of a kind of a bigger or a deeper dive into the different units. You can see we've got everything from small little 4-inch screens all the way up through 19-inch wide screens, and then we've got a line of industrial PCs all the way up to 22-inch. And you can see here's the different strengths in relative to the other units.
Tom, let me ask, how do I know where the line is between HMI and IPC on this chart? Is it where we go to the 3 pluses, the PS6000 and SP5000?
Yeah, that's the good point. It is in the PS6000, PS5000 area. I guess that's a great question. When I look at this chart, I would have the same question. But yeah, so when you're talking about everything to the left here, these are all going to be fixed operating system HMIs. When we're talking about one model of the PS5000, or this is the old, that's the old lineup. When we talk about anything with a PS in it in ProFace world, that's going to be an IPC.
Oh, okay.
And so we're talking about these are Windows units, and this rugged unit is not Windows. So this is actually a non-Windows unit also. But yeah, you're talking about in this line here, this is where you're talking about Windows. And what you'll see from a software perspective, you'll notice this BOS doesn't run in anything here.
Oh.
That's only running on PCs.
Okay, so PS6000 is the PC line. Got it.
Correct. Okay, so that was the hardware and kind of an overall picture of ProFace. So now just kind of jumping into the software. So this is the Blue Open Studio, and if you'll remember this from the Harmony presentation, this is actually a brand label of Aviva Edge, which previously was Indusoft. So for everybody who's been around in industry forever, in what the benefit in, it's very similar to what we kind of the same message in ProFace is that the benefit of using our version of it is that we can bundle it with our IPC hardware, right? So we can bundle it as a package. You don't have to go out and buy the software and the hardware. You can have it all bundled into one part number. And then the other part of it is that we do now have a Linux runtime. We have a little piece of hardware. It's basically our HMI hardware running a kind of a scaled down version of this. So some people could be interested in that. So then again, so if you kind of look at this, this is what we call our light SCADA software, where, is it a full blown SCADA? Sure, depending on what you want to do with it. But, we kind of feel like it's it's get all the functionality in one package, right? You're not going to buy pieces of it. You get everything with one purchase. That's what we feel the strength is here.
Yeah, for the audio audience, on the capabilities, it pretty much, I'm just looking through it, it pretty much has everything you would think of in a SCADA system, including some extras too. I mean, it just doesn't have like recipes and scalability and OPC and graphics and trends and, database and logging and all that. It also has things like FTP and PDF export and email and all that kind of stuff you would expect in a modern HMI. So I just wanted to point that out for the audio audience. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is one of the strengths of this package is that because it does have a Visual Basic interface and soon to be a Python interface, you can. The only limitation to this software is the programmer, really. So that's a strength for sure. And then again, so moving on into the Blue Open Studio, again, this is very similar. We're kind of just packaging these messages kind of into these different products. We're talking about high flexibility. We're talking about the open architecture, a lot of, a huge amount of drivers, mobile access with HTML5 interfaces, et cetera, cybersecurity, tested and validated hardware, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And then again, this is what I was talking about. This is where we view our strength in bundling this package with, an hardware and a software and association where you can integrate it. You know that it's going to work. You're going to get it from one supplier. You've got one place of support, et cetera. Here's just kind of where we see it sitting in as far as where we see it, from a tag perspective, because this is sold by tag count. So we could see we actually do have a 500 tag license now, and then up to 64,000 tags. Again, here's just some more stuff about, it has the ability to, you have functions into there to build towards FDA traceability. Again, like Shawn was saying, OPC, .NET, HTML5, all your buzzwords, et cetera, are built in. Okay. Then when we look at, again, so here now getting into the hardware a little bit, when we talk about the industrial PC, this is the new PS6000. Okay, so I'm not going to read all this stuff. This is the PS6000 line is our newest lineup. I'm just kind of going through here again using Blue Open. This is giving you some of the stuff that you can do using the different software packages. Advanced traceability, like I said, connect to IT systems, right? So pushing data up to databases, et cetera, pushing, to whatever kind of database you'd like to, secure remote connections, remote visualizations, et cetera. And then here you could see there's two different boxes, and then you marry them with different displays. So you can run these without a display, headless, right? You mount them to a DIN rail or to the back of your panel. You can see we've got everything i3 and Celeron up through i7. They all have 2 Ethernet ports, et cetera, and they're fully configurable. So when you actually order these, you configure a part number, you pick what processor you want, you pick how much RAM you want, you pick what type of storage device you want, you pick if you want any expansion slots, et cetera. And then as part of it, you could pick what software you want bundled with it.
This is pretty, for the audio audience, that slide is pretty cool. It just shows how you can really, while it's an industrial computer, you can customize it, the graphics, the memory, the
Right.
storage, you want a display module, all the way up to 22 inches wide, full HD. So as I'm looking through this chart, it's pretty much, you can pick what you want.
You got to pick what you want.
Yeah, you can pick what you want. So if you want a serial part, you got it, which I think is awesome because there's so many old legacy things out there that have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for pulling that up.
Yeah, and just so you know, we're right on the cusp of releasing in this product line, some Atom CPUs, because you'll see here, we don't really have, the lowest thing we have here is that i3. So we're going to release some Atom CPUs so you can have, that'll give you a little bit of a lower end solution. Not as performant, but if an i7 is too much, you'll have other options.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, will you guys be releasing some guidance, like with only an Atom, maybe you don't want to do like 100 graphic displays?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what
that's
a great question. And I think what I would do for that is I would go back to this slide. I think this is where we kind of would, this is the way we would see it. But, but I think you're right. That is something that is important for people to know, is like, okay, if I'm going to do X, what processor do I need? And for me, it's always an interesting thing because we talk about, it in tag count, but, depending on what you're doing, I mean, I could really even with 500 tags, I could stress the system depending on what I'm going to be doing. So I think the tag count is not necessarily the right thing to use all the time. So
I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
Right. So, yeah. So moving on then again, so you can kind of see we're trying to do that here, right? We're trying to we're giving it a star rating. We're saying, okay, if you just need a user interface, this is kind of what you're going to do. If you want to use it, you want to connect to IT systems, maybe you don't want to do that in a real simple unit, right? You know what I mean? But if you're, some of these things that aren't going to be so taxing on the processor, then okay, it's not going to be any problem, right? So you can see, like at the bottom, it says, if we're going to connect to several controllers at the same time, then maybe you don't want to do that in a basic computer. Okay. All right. So then moving on to the next software package, and then what I would say, this is when even though Proface currently is selling 3 software packages, and I can go back, let me. I don't know if you remember back to the slide, there was actually a 3rd package, but we're not going to talk about it. It's still a used package. It's kind of a legacy software that Proface has had forever. It's still being supported. It still has a lifetime. There's no end of life applied to it yet. It's still going to exist. But when we talk about, say, new pursuits, so to speak, when we're talking about where we would talk about Blue Open Studio, or in this case, we're going to talk about a software called Blue. Okay, so this is where a lot of the, for Blue Open Studio, that's being done by Aviva. For the Blue software, this is being done by Schneider / Proface. So this is kind of more of our own homegrown type product, and it is our future for software. Okay. So when we the main message is that this is a revolutionary new software, meaning we're giving you an alternative experience in HMI project design that it's giving you, and let me just say this is, especially in industry, this is not always something that people want to hear, but it's basically, when you look at it, you're going to recognize it has a not same HMI software you've been using for the last 20 years. And I think that's what you have to understand about it going in. It's using different kinds of screen types, et cetera, so that you can make a more dynamic experience for the user. That's the goal. Using more modern programming techniques, object-oriented programming, et cetera. Okay. So just when we take a little bit deeper dive into it, right? So it's all vector graphics with font, with anti-aliasing, etc., giving you better pictures. It has a really interesting color set in theme functionality, where if you, instead of having to design, if you want to have a HMI project with different color sets or different color themes, let's say let's say you want to have the theme go to an alarm color set when there's an alarm that's gonna show red, so somebody from across the floor can see, hey, something's red. I don't have to program a separate HMI application that's in red. I just change the color theme on the fly, and now I'm in a red color theme. And then when the alarm's away, I dynamically turn that color theme off, and now I go back to normal.
Nice.
Okay, so this is what I mean. This is kind of the stuff that we're trying to do some different things within HMI that hopefully people can see the value in it. Okay, multi-screen. So, like for example, if you look at this screenshot here, this is 4 screens superimposed into one, and that is not a suite. That screen is not that we just took that one screen and made it like that. No, those are 4 independent separate contents that if they're displayed by themselves would fill the entire screen. But because of the way that we can design using this software, I can put all 4 of those and they'll all get squeezed together exactly proportionally because it's all vector based and scaled that way. So you can see, you can get a lot of information in one place. Okay, again, back to, gradients, transparencies, just, we're talking about better looking screens, etc. objects. Okay. Responsive behavior, meaning if you look at these screenshots, and again, if we've got people listening, it's a little bit hard to understand, but we're talking about, rather than say, popping a window up over the top of something, instead what we'll do is we'll say pull some more content up from the bottom when we need it. And the advantage to that is that doesn't disrupt anything below. Because I can proportionally do this, what happens is my content will slide up and I can see the new stuff that I want to see. And then the old stuff will still be there. It'll just be a little bit smaller and scaled so you can still see it, right? As this illustration shows.
And I think that's really important too, because, you can go from, 1280 by 720 to 1920 by 1080 by 4K, and everything looks great. But when you start getting smaller, like some things have to be ejected off the screen, and that's what you're showing here. It's kind of like when we turn our phone from landscape to portrait. Some things move, and then some things just minimize for you to open it, and it's very important on those smaller screens. So I can see where that's definitely a great feature.
Yeah. So this is like I said. So this is what we're that is the pitch of the software. It's like I said. It's where everything is going. It's where the developments, we're adding new things to it all the time, and hoping to make it, where you can have, we're trying to make it where you've got an HMI package that's going to do all the stuff that you're going to need an HMI to do. And if you want to take advantage of some of these new, say, design behaviors, you can take advantage of them. So, okay. All right. So that's what we'll say about the softwares. Now we'll get into another. This is kind of where we get into the basic HMIs, right? We talked about the PCs. Now we're talking about the basic HMIs. Again, I'm not going to go through some of this stuff. Okay, so this is the SD6000 series that we're talking about, and you'll see there's 4 different models. There's just the basic series, which is what you think of a traditional 7-inch through 15-inch panel mount. Plastic back, I think it's aluminum front HMI panel mount. Same hardware this is an SD6000. In ProFace world, this runs either Blue or GP Pro. In the same hardware, we also have basically what we call a web HMI, which is basically just that same hardware without an HMI on it. We just put basically a browser in it. So it's basically a browser-based HMI. Then we've got the same model I think if you remember this from the Schneider series, Schneider and ProFace make a HMI that is mounted through one single 22 millimeter knockout hole. Awesome. So you don't have to cut out so you don't have to do the
time
panel
saver.
Cutout. Total time saver. People love it. Cost savings, the whole thing. And then there is also basically a faceless version of this ST6000, and this faceless version can run either Blue or Blue Open Studio. So this was that Linux version of Blue Open Studio that I was talking about, but this will also run Blue, right? So it's in that hardware. Okay, so that's what the lineup looks like. Okay, so we talked about the blue software, and then now we're hearing this is the main, for now, this is the main hardware that we're running blue on, but it will run on basically all our hardware, even the IPCs. Okay, so when we talk about the values of this HMI line, we're saying aluminum front panel, 16 million colors, better graphics and font with blue. Even if you even use GP Pro with the 16 million colors, that improves it. And then again here, some of this stuff is really talking about blue. Again, we talked about the theme and color set, the multi-screen, dock panel, assisted HMI creation, right? Easy installation, easy customization, easy access to the user manual, etc. And then we do have a connected, we do have a service. I'm not sure if there's a slide in here, but we do have a service that allows you to, it's basically our own VPN service, which allows you to connect the HMIs directly to like a cloud-based service to do connectivity through.
Is that just for ProFace, or is that for all Schneider?
Schneider has it. It's branded, but it's It's a similar thing, but it is branded solutions. Yeah. And then again, this is, again, I'm not going to get into some of this. This is a little bit more detailed probably for this. And we're just, these are the values for depending on what industry you're in. And then again, here's the lineup. You can see everything from a 4.3 inch wide up through a 15 inch wide. And you can see the resolutions, 16 million colors, resistive touchscreens, et cetera. And here's, you can see the memory.
On ports, RS-232, 485.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Dual Ethernets, like you said, dual Ethernets. Yep.
Dual Ethernet. Yeah.
And a couple of USBs. That's good stuff.
Right. Yeah. And here's the modular unit. A little bit different with the modular. The main difference between what I'll point out is the main difference between the main units is, if you'll notice the certifications down here, the modular actually does have Class 1 Div 2, where the other units do not. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a difference. Yeah.
So you had could you go back to the previous slide? So I'm seeing, just for the audience,
just regular UL. Yeah.
And also NEMA Type 4X.
Right.
And then on the next one, you had for the little guy that has the mounts in the single 22 millimeter circular hole, that is also that's Class 1 Div 2, as you said, ATEX Zone 222, but that's also IP65F and NEMA Type 4X indoor only.
Yeah, I'm dating myself with this slide too. I just realized this. Look out, because this was when this first product came out. When it was first released, the ATEX wasn't ready. So
okay,
but
ATEX and IEC-EX. That's good.
Right. And then again, what this is speaking to is the concept here is using that same piece of hardware without a display mounted to a DIN rail. One of the things that you can actually do, and I'll just point this out now just because it's showing this, is when you mount this HMI faceless to a DIN rail, you can actually, if you've got the right unit, you can actually run basically a patch cable between the DIN rail mount in a remote display. So you can take that display, disconnect it from the unit, and then remote the display. So you can have the HMI piece and the display in two separate pieces, in two separate places. They're tied together with a cable, obviously, but it gives you a kind of a remote mount. You can kind of see that here. I guess this is that separation cable here. Yeah. You can kind of see what that looks like. But what we're showing here on this slide is, if you were using blue, let's say if you didn't have a screen, we still can remote view, because the blue software can actually serve up its screens to a web browser. So you can operate and view the screens just through a browser. Right. And you can see this is where it's showing, I can send data up to higher systems. And then I can even use, this is that ProFace Connect. This is that secure remote and maintenance service that I was talking about. And the nice thing here is you can look at this as kind of being like a service, like a VPN service. But what's nice about that is that the client is built into the HMI itself. So you don't need any additional hardware. No additional appliance needed to get that VPN connected. Here's the web terminal, so you can see this is about the same thing. It's just that this happens to be the web one. You can see one difference is that the Ethernet ports connect as a switch, with the other units cannot do that. And then the last part is GP Pro was that third software that I was talking about that's not going away. It's still current software, been around forever. A ton of current users, right? And we know how to help people with migration. So in other words, so we don't have to tell people you've got to switch now or something. We're going to give you a way to migrate to the new ST6000 series, right? So there's actually some ST6000s were created that were only for GP Pro, just so people could migrate them.
Okay.
And then this is still this is the SP5000 series, which is this is the high for ProFace. This is the top of our HMI line from a hardware and performance perspective, other than, we're not talking about the IPCs part. And what you'll notice, this is a little bit different. So this is again, much like the IPCs, this is a separated hardware architecture where you've got a display separate from what we call the box module. So you can see we've got displays everywhere, 19-inch wide down through 7-inch wide. The premium displays say have multi-touch. So for example, all that interesting stuff that we can do in the Blue software, you can really get the most out of it with, if you want to get multi-touch, you can get the most out of it with a premium display, for example. Okay. And then another little bit of a twist on it is these, you can actually use what we call the open box. And what you notice with the open box is this power box and this standard box, these are not Windows, these are real-time operating systems. But this open box, you could see we've got a Windows 10 unit that you can also get. Okay.
I like that. So you can standardize on one line, the SP5000.
Correct.
You get the standard box for your standard HMI, and you can put any screen on it you want.
That's right.
If you have a high-end system, you can put your power box on, or if you just want Windows, you put your Windows box on. I love the concept.
Right. Yep. And if you want to say in this, then there's even a standard box which reduces. If you want to kind of a little bit, you don't quite need even what a power box has. You can go to the standard box. And then again, customer values. I'm not going to get too much into this, but this is kind of the one of the things that I'll mention, I guess, that is not shown. This box module can very similarly to the modular HMI with a 22 millimeter. There is also an adapter that this can mount to, so you can run this as a faceless unit. Unfortunately, you can't do it. We don't have the ability to run a tether for a display, but if you wanted to just run it as a true faceless unit, that's possible with this model also. And then again, this is just talking about where we see the SP5000 has a more higher end unit that has more adaptability and maintainability for sure, right? Because for example, if you smash the display now, you don't have to worry about your program or anything because it's not in the display. You can just replace the display, slap the existing CPU on the back, and you're off and running.
Yep, and that happens quite a bit, unfortunately.
Yes, it does. Correct. Yeah, exactly. And again, here's it just is way too much to get into for this, right? The UVPs for the different segments for the SP5000. Again, this is where we view, for the different segments, how we view that, what the customer is expecting and how we can deliver. And then we're getting into, with this one, this is the outdoor version of that SP5000 series. And what this is, I think, if you should be, so you can see sunlight readable, resist extreme environment, robustness, UV protected, UL50E type 4X outdoor use, etc. Here's the units. So you can see looks similar, but the front, these are stainless steel in the front. And the back is a little bit more rugged. And the real thing you want to look at is the temperature range. So these are the operating temperatures, which are
minus 22 to 158. That's a range.
Yeah, right. So we're talking minus 20 to 60 is, say, the low end, and then minus 30 to 70 with the 12-inch display. So you can see there's a little bit different temperature ranges depending on the display.
Okay.
Yep. No, I was just going to mention it's similar system where you're marrying the box module with whatever display you want.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to put a standard HMI outdoors. The UV is just, plus it does. I mean, you can go to certain theme parks, you'll see a bunch of, they're supposed to be black, but they're now white.
Right.
And you can't see the screen. It really, and it's extra, and they're not bright enough too. You got to have those extra nits to really get that brightness, that high brightness, to be able to see in full sunlight. And I'm looking through the slide. So just for the listening audience, everything is right here on the slide, and I'm just looking it over to see if there's anything else to comment on. But it's always good to have an outdoor model.
Right. Okay, and then I think the last thing we're going to talk about, and what we'll mention here is about customization and services, and then this is, and again, this would be done by, so like Proface is a global organization. There's locations obviously all over the globe. When we talk about customizations, then what we're talking about, that's done at a more local level. So some of the stuff I'll show you here, this wasn't necessarily done here in the US, but the US Proface organization is capable of doing customization and services. So if I go down one more other slide, you can see these would be totally within the bandwidth of Proface America. Custom logo, customized overlay, and then one of the more interesting thing is like when we talk about with the IPCs. So not only can we bundle a software with the purchase of your IPC, but we could also potentially say create the PC so that when you take it out of the box, it's ready to go. So you don't have to do any configurations. You don't have to do any licensing potentially or whatever it could be. So that's where some of the strengths of some of the customization stuff that's possible. So, okay. So that's about it. That's all I had for
Proface. I feel a lot smarter about Proface now, and it seems like a very interesting line. I love how you have the legacy software for the people who have been using it forever,
right?
But you have the new blue software for those folks who are, want to use the latest and greatest technologies, like a multi-touch, right? And you have the low end line or the less expensive line, the higher end line, and the outdoor unit. So it seems like a full blown and very complementary to the Harmony line, which we saw in one of the previous shows.
Correct.
Which is very similar, but the fact that you have you're taking care of both sides of the business is impressive, and it's good. It always drives me nuts when a product that's in its prime gets discontinued and not updated.
Right.
So I feel like I know so much more about the software and the hardware now.
Right. And like I said, that's what's viewed as the strength of, like I said, with Proface, is that they put Proface is HMI at the center of the architecture, and we build around that, we market around that, we produce documentation around that, we produce guides around that. For Schneider, it's the HMI, although it can be, there's nothing preventing it from being the center of the architecture, even on the Schneider side. But in the Schneider side, the message is, okay, the HMI is part of it's part of an overall system. So that's where we're differentiating. And with Proface, that gives us the ability to play with other partners, to talk to people, to potentially Schneider competitors, right? Because we're a more neutral brand, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Jay, did you want to add anything?
No, I think he did an excellent job of comparing the two. Unless we just want to remind everyone that if you couldn't see it, if you have questions, feel free to reach out directly to Tom himself or myself, and we would be more than happy to get back to you and answer any other detailed questions you might have about this.
Well, guys, I really want to thank you both for coming on the show and bringing us up to speed on Proface. Been looking forward to this for a while, because once we did the Harmony, it was like, all right, there's another line they have. And so now, if you want to know anything about Schneider HMIs and industrial PCs, I think we've covered them all, at least for today. And so I really, again, want to thank you, Jay and Tom, for coming on the show and bringing us up to speed.
You're welcome.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Jay and Tom for coming back on the show and bringing us all up to speed on the Proface line of HMIs and industrial computers. Now, if you did enjoy this episode, please consider giving us a like, a sub, and a share. That is the fuel that keeps this show on the air. Also, if you want to get in touch with me or follow me, you can do so over at automation.locals.com, and you'll always find all of my training courses over at theautomationschool.com. With that, I want to encourage you, no matter what happens, I want to encourage you to stay courageous, stay fearless, and until next time, my friends, peace.